Sameer, thank you so much for talking to ET Now. It's a while since we've had you on the channel. And I was just going through the latest NPCI data for June. Looks like things are back to pre-COVID levels in terms of digital payments. We're seeing a bounce back. Give me the PhonePe perspective, because you, along with Google Pay, Amazon Pay, really dominate the space in India. So what can you tell us about digital payments, the way it's bounced back? Is this pent-up demand playing out? Is it here to stay?
No, I think June was definitely good. Numbers are back across the board at normal levels, plus minus 10% in specific categories. Digital payments actually was one of the few categories, especially digital payments for recharges, your bills, your utilities, DTH, content, gaming. A lot of categories actually boomed during the first lockdown itself. Offline and online and merchant transactions in general obviously were quite badly affected. That we are seeing a resurgence start in the second half of May. June, I would say offline merchant transactions are back at about 95%, which is very healthy.
And what categories is driving this, Amir? I mean, are these first-time users? Are these people shifting a lot of existing payments online? Like you said, utilities saw a pickup. And are you seeing a trend where more of tier 2, tier 3 cities, people there are coming online?
You know, it's strange. Actually, pre-COVID, 75% of our users were tier 2, tier 3. We've actually seen a lot more stubbornness from people in the tier 1 metros in adopting digital payments over the years. Sounds counterintuitive, but people in the metros have always had access to staff that can help go pay their bills, to office infrastructure and organized sector and e-commerce. So in fact, it's that lot that's actually started coming online in larger numbers. Tier 2 and tier 3 have always been very, very sort of fast to pick up on new technologies.
Right. And any quantitative, qualitative trends that you can share in terms of the categories driving demand? Are these your essentials? Are we seeing big ticket items? Anything on that front?
So Kirana shop transactions are back in big numbers, especially in the heartland, because I think COVID impact is lesser in the non-tier 1 cities and the metros. So there across every pin code, we are seeing the transactions are back at normal levels, in some cases higher, because the habit sort of got initiated during COVID. I think sectors that are still hurting, obviously, there's transit, so that's still hurting. Cabs, those are hurting. Organized sector, malls, big retail outlets, those are still lagging. But other than that, even food delivery, e-commerce, the minute the lockdowns were lifted, they've come back in a very strong way. So that's a good sign. If you look at the length and breadth of the sectors that we are looking at, I think everyone's sort of getting back to normalcy fast.
Right. Samir, I just want to understand, you also had plans on increasing the other categories. Apart from payments, you've also been focusing on EMIs. You have a partnership with Bajaj Finance. How is that playing out for you?
Really well, actually. So we've actually had a flurry of launches during COVID. One of the exciting ones was in the mutual funds category, where we launched a product along with one of the AMCs called Super Funds. So these allow first-time investors to just invest their money based on their risk propensity. And the best of the fund managers actually do the investments for them. And so our mutual funds category AUMs now crossed 100 crores just earlier this month. So that's a big milestone for us. Similarly, on insurance, we were the first to launch a Corona insurance product along with Bajaj, and then another one with ICICI. We've sold almost, I believe, about 100,000 policies till date. So that was, again, timely. So I think we are seeing strong uptick on the financial services. Obviously, a lot of them still to be rolled out. We're also looking forward to mandates coming out on UPI, wallets, cards. Because the RBI had opened that up, if you remember, just pre-COVID.
Right, for recurring payments. Right.
So SIPs and EMI payments and a lot of those categories are starting to open up one by one. That's very heartening.
Right. And in terms of the competitive landscape, Sameer, how does JioMart really change things? WhatsApp Pay is, of course, still work in progress. But if they manage to integrate that into the app, what kind of impact will it have? And are you stepping up focus on the Kirana segment? On P2M, you're already a leader when I compare you to other UPI apps. But is this going to be a big category for you going forward?
So I think at an industry level, I think it's going to be 4 or 5 years of boom time for the Kiranas in general, because it looks like everyone sort of decided that they're going to try and solve Kirana problems, right? So Amazon's entering, Jio's entered, Google's coming in. So we've been there for 2.5 years. We have a large merchant base. We are still introducing a lot of solutions. Again, Khata book management is a key problem. We launched Khata in March. So over 100 crores worth of Khata, and that's actually just growing really fast in this environment. ATMs, we launched over 2 million ATMs because people didn't want to go and stand in long queues. So again, some of those just got a boost because of the environment. Having said that, I think GeoMart's focus is O2 or commerce. We are not into direct commerce. So for us, we work with everyone, including Geo, on various categories, and they're a potential partner in opening up replenishment or sales or sell-through at the Kiranas. So they're not direct competition to us, and we work with them in many ways. And WhatsApp Pay should come in when they can. We've been, I think, waiting now for 2 years. I'd rather get past that sort of when will they
get out of beta testing and finally go to the next stage?
Yeah, I'm bored of that question, honestly.
But Samir, I mean, PhonePe also has plans for going global. There was some talk about Mexico last year, and I mean, this is one of the reasons why Walmart was betting so big on PhonePe, because they see potential for this to go global. What plans are you charting on that front? What can you share?
So we are now evaluating quite actively which markets to enter. I think we also have partnerships, deep partnerships, both with UPI, which has global ambitions, as well as Visa and MasterCard. So in terms of infrastructure, it's an easy ride for us. Walmart's obviously very dominant in retail in about 25, 26 countries as well. So we are charting landscape, charting out our plans. I think it won't happen in 2020. It's just a bad year to set up teams globally. But once COVID settles down and there's a vaccine and we can travel, I think 21 onwards, you will see PhonePe venture out into different markets. I think there's definitely a need for an all-in-one sort of application that can solve not just payments, but financial services, make it easier for offline and online merchants to also actually access large base. So still very much interested in it. Now planning it out sometime next year.
Right. And what do you make of this whole Atmanirbhar thrust by the government, specifically the ban on Chinese apps? Startup players I have been speaking to are very enthused about building for India, but they've only banned Chinese apps. You still have the American apps, which have anyway dominated the space. So is this really going to be a huge movement for resurgence of Indian players making for India, building for India? What's your take?
You'll have to allow me a few minutes to answer that one. So Atmanirbharta, I think, is a very, very welcome war cry. Not in war times, even in peace times. I think we are not building enough applications for the mass market. And I say this despite the fact that the majority of our users are tier 2, tier 3. We learned this on the merchant side. We are still scratching the surface on understanding what a small shop or a small entrepreneur needs in a town or a village in rural India or beyond the metros, right? Unfortunately, most of our entrepreneurs are in metro setups. You have 4G, you have data, you have nice offices. So we don't necessarily understand what it takes to build for the mass market yet. And I think it's starting to change. It has been changing for the last 3 or 4 years. I think that'll get boosted along with hopefully manufacturing as a focus area. So my interpretation of Atmanirbharta is the Prime Minister's war cry saying, start focusing on building great products and services and plants in India for India. I think that's very, very welcome in the best of times. As far as the banning of applications, in general, I don't like when politics and technology collide. I think the world is a better place because all of us are able to use technology, gadgets, tools that we learned from or about by working or collaborating with others. I think Indians will be much more competitive if we compete in a global market. In general, I'm a child of the globalized world. Um, and I think we've all gained from it. You and I are having a conversation over a technology that didn't exist 2 years ago, and it's impossible to even tell, is Zoom Chinese, American, Indian? I mean, what is it? So I think as far as technology advancement itself is concerned, I think Indian entrepreneurs have had all the tools. I don't think you need to ban Chinese apps for Indians to innovate for India. That said, especially in times of military escalation, there's a different problem. If I take it at face value, what the government said is they're concerned about the data theft or data security of these applications. I think it's very important that we focus on that. I am a big proponent of data localization for sensitive and private data. And I think Europe's gone that way, the US is going that way. And I think that's a fair ask. Whichever market you operate in, if PhonePe operates in different markets, we'll respect the data laws of that country and the data sovereignty of that country. I don't think that is, unfortunately, the timing makes it look like this is more about politics than about policy. But I think the policy is right, saying if you're operating in India, you must have an establishment here. You must promise that you're keeping the data safe and secure, and it's not being used.
But how are people going to comply when there is no data protection law in place? There is a draft, it's been pending for a long time. So how is that going to happen?
Well, I think there is an IT Act. I think the Data Protection Act is intended to be a lot more precise or prescriptive and elaborate, but I think the guiding principles are there. Now, we are also bound by what's in play, but we don't need someone to tell us that the right thing to do as a payments company, for example, is to keep the data here, right? We had it even before the RBI directive. I don't think the Data Privacy Act has prevented the banks from keeping your and my data safe and secure in India. That's true in every country, including in China or in India or in the US. So I think that again is a policy matter. I think the one area where I think people are getting very confused, especially on Twitter, is India and the Indian government has said quite unequivocally, we need foreign direct investment, we need FII money, we need FDI money. And so trying to actually target apps, and here I'm giving a rare shout out to Paytm, trying to say that Paytm's a Chinese app because of their shareholding is just absurd. Because they're headquartered in India, they have thousands and thousands of employees in India. People have celebrated that company for the last 5 years in media. Now for everyone to come out opportunistically and say, no, you're not Indian because you have capital from Alibaba, that's just, in my mind, nuts. That's just not consistent.
Oh my God, Sameer, this is such a rare moment. You're actually speaking up for Paytm a few days after you spoke up for Google Pay. I mean, what's happening?
No, I think there are many areas where we disagree competitively in terms of, hey, or we have different strategies and we are competing. But it's time for the industry overall also to start fending for itself as an industry, because it's too easy to get victimized one by one, right? Either the government.
So you think there needs to be a distinction that one can't say Paytm must also be targeted because Alipay owns 40% in Paytm, Alibaba owns over 30% in Paytm Mall. Because there are concerns about what kind of control these investors exercise. I think that's where exactly the confusion is coming.
If we are going to celebrate as a country that Jio's raised whatever 1.5 lakh crores in the last 3 months and has come from Facebook and everywhere else, then we should equally be able to celebrate capital coming in. The question you posed, which is very fair, is Paytm or any company giving data out? Did you ever imagine that Facebook would be giving your data to Cambridge Analytica? I hadn't. That was a breach of faith. There needs to be accountability for that. But that can't be used as a populist measure to start saying that Vijay or anyone at Paytm is not Indian or not working for India. I think those two are completely different topics. And
Sameer, would you have said this if you were not owned by Walmart and you were a standalone Indian startup? I mean, there are Indian startups like companies like Mobikwik, which say they are truly Indian, they are not foreign owned in any way.
Really? So, their largest investor is Sequoia. Can somebody ask Sequoia where their LPs come from? Really? We're going to play that game? Go on Twitter and start putting up flags? That's how we're going to play it. InMobi is now claiming Reposo's India's Made in India app. But everybody who's been using InMobi, they've been talking about being a global advertising network. Their biggest market was China. So I do disagree at a principle level. If India says India wants to go global and our entrepreneurs want to stand on equal footing with everyone, then we need to start respecting certain sacrosanct boundaries. You can't be opportunistic in dissing investors and dissing investment when it suits you. That to me is where policy and politics need to be separated out. Policy is about what's allowed and not allowed. Whether I'm a subsidiary of Flipkart, whether I was independent when we launched, or whether there's Walmart as a majority owner, I'm proud of all three scenarios because all three from a governance standpoint are very, very strong. Why should it matter? We can have a debate about whether strategic investment in India is allowed or not. That again is a policy matter. But if the law of the land says, and the Prime Minister of the country, not just this one, the previous one and the one before him, have said we want foreign direct capital, then we should be happy and proud of the fact that India is a hub for investment. We celebrate it every day. And then when opportunity presents itself, we just start hate mongering. I'm just against the hate mongering without reason.
What do you think should be the way forward? How can we really draw a line here? Because on the one hand, as you said, in a war-like situation, data sovereignty, the security of our data, that's crucial. But on the other hand, you also cannot vilify startups and unicorns because ultimately these are Indian, they're run by Indian CEOs who are accountable to the laws of the land. They employ Indians, they service Indian customers. How can one really draw a distinction? Is there a risk of an overreach by the government?
No, I think in any democracy or any kind of setup in the world, right, there's always that risk. And technology has always pushed the boundaries of innovation and has always been in the process of government for the last 200, 300 years, right? Technology is meant to disrupt and change the way we do things. Bureaucracy is meant to preserve it. That notwithstanding, I think you answered it yourself earlier. Pass the data privacy bill and then make enforcement very, very strong. That's what Indian citizens want. We want our data to be protected. Then take the market view and decide, are you allowing FDI or not? Are you allowing strategic levels of capitalization or not? If you're fine with 26 in some sectors, 49 in others, 74 in others, and 100 in others, then stop saying, why are people coming and investing a lot? That's a policy matter. You can't reflect backwards and say, I'll change laws retrospectively. This whole business of having things be retrospective is hurting our credibility as a market. And I think it's important that people speak up a little more freely than they have in the past about the fact that we need a little more consistency as a market. And my comment in support of Google and my comment in support of Paytm right now are just two examples of that, but we've done this in the past. I think Google has not been banned by RBI. That is very, very clear. Google has got the permission to operate thanks to NPCI. NPCI has put that in media. For people to start trolling and saying they're banned was just wrong. Does it mean I want or I don't have any axe to grind on any dimension with Google? No. There will be several areas where we disagree, including on policy, including on monopolistic practices.
And it's the same with Paytm, right? Where you have had disagreements in the past, but on this issue, you feel that they shouldn't be targeted.
They've been around data and they've been around sort of where the industry should go as a policy matter. And there's some we'll agree on, some we don't. I think this is one where I draw the line at least, saying don't vilify the company just because suddenly we've soured after just because of an unfortunate situation or build up at the border. Don't target Vijay and target Paytm simply because they've got Alibaba capital. I mean, that's just wrong.
Okay. And outside of this, Samir, how do you really see the payment landscape evolving or Paytm's own plans for the year in terms of growth, in terms of hiring? Are you bullish now that digital payments are seeing a bounce back? What can you share about that?
So you asked me about Paytm's plans or PhonePe's plans?
Sorry, PhonePe.
So I think we already said this. We are actively hiring. We're hiring across all fronts. Especially
that's a relief to hear at a time when there've been layoffs. So that's a relief.
We've already I think officially announced that we are looking to hire at least between 500 to 700 more employees in the corporate offices, and many more in the offline sales fleet as well. So that is something that's actively happening right now. As I said, I think digital payments, financial services, advertising, all these sectors are going through a boom, and I think we need to do our part to open up hiring.
Right. On that note, thank you so much for talking to ET Now. Candid, as always, you've always been forthright, and thank you for being that way and speaking up for even if it is for somebody that you compete with. But thank you so much for talking to us.
Thanks, Chandra.